how things changed and how you started feeling as those red flags became more apparent towards the end of that relationship.
Well, the feelings for me were stress. It was that, like I said, that anxiety, that stress, and it really came up in the finance side of it. I mean, we always struggled with money. I mean, for 24 years, we've always struggled with money. So, I'm the overachiever. I will work and I will figure it out, and I will whatever I have to do. We'll make sure the payments are made.
Welcome to the Heartbreak to Happiness show with Sarah Davison. If you're struggling with a breakup and you feel shocked, angry, betrayed, devastated, or sad and alone, then this podcast is for you. Best-selling author and award-winning host Sarah Davison shares how you too can get on with your life to heal, grow, and move from heartbreak to happiness. Here's your host, Sarah Davison.
So, welcome, John, to the show. Really nice to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me on your program.
Oh my goodness, you came all the way from the United States to go and record a podcast and do a training with me. So I'm super pleased that you came. You're a coach who has done my training program. You are a breakup and divorce coach. Tell me a little bit about your business.
Certainly. My name is John Hardy. I am a divorce and separation coach, specializing in toxic relationships and domestic abuse. I help people struggling with divorce navigate with clarity and purpose by dialing down their emotions and guiding them along a positive path forward.
Wow, that is a lot. I love it. Okay, so I'm guessing that in order to want to do this work, a bit like myself, there's a story behind it. It's not something you dreamed of doing at school, is it? Becoming a divorce coach?
I did not sign up for this in school by any means. So yeah, a little bit about my story, my background. It was not a journey that I plan on starting for certain and sure. In August of 2023, my life came to an abrupt halt. I found myself drowning in the bottom of a bottle of Maker's Mark, which is a Tennessee bourbon whiskey. I had just been let go from my job for being under the influence. Not a proud moment in my life for certain and sure. I knew I needed help, and I checked myself into rehab the very next day. That's where I spent the next 17 days detoxing, learning about addiction and that sort of stuff, and trying to figure my life out. And coming out of rehab, I felt like I had a new lease on life. It was a positive attitude. I had a therapist. I had meetings to attend, to maintain my sobriety. I worked on my sobriety for certain and sure. And I remember when my wife picked me up, something felt off. It just felt like I was being picked up from the principal's office for being a troll, instead of being away from my family for almost 3 weeks and, working on myself and, investing in myself and investing in my family. So over the next 87 days, I saw my therapist, I made my meetings, I worked on my sobriety, and I had started to build a business at home so I could work for myself and manage my work-life balance. So I could take that out of the equation for a stressor. And as things kind of progressed at home, I could feel that there was some pressure and some tension, and it was like I was walking on eggshells, in that no matter what I did or said, you just felt like you were always in trouble. And it started to manifest in myself as anxiety. And it's not like the anxiousness of coming on a podcast or anything like that. It was a burning, empty sensation in my chest. And it was one that, I recognized it. That was what I was struggling with when I was drinking. And I couldn't get it to go away. It didn't matter what I did. At that time, I was on antidepressants. I was on anti-anxiety medication. I was on sleeping aids to help me sleep. So, it wasn't that, I was cold turkey not doing anything. There was no alcohol involved, but I still was suffering from this and struggling with this. And
so at a time where you needed and wanted compassion, you weren't feeling that you were getting that. I guess some people might listen and think, well, you just got fired from your job, and is this reasonable for someone to expect there is no consequence to those actions? Was this a new thing, or had this been going on before?
this had been going on for several years. the support that I did not receive at home. There was always an open bottle of wine in the fridge. There was no compassion. I felt there was no compassion from my wife. I was more like a roommate, an annoying roommate than a loving husband. You know, and I didn't try to, I always reciprocated with love and compassion and tried to be there, but you were continually pushed and isolated. You were ignored. It was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
No.
How long were you married for?
I was married for 24 years. I'd been with my wife for 30. So, I mean, it's a long-term relationship. It's not something that, you know, it was a lot of time invested.
Yeah.
You know, it's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of time. And was it from at the beginning? Were there red flags around this, or looking back? I know hindsight's a great thing.
Today, looking back, yes. Again, through my training, I know what red flags are. You know, 30 years ago, I was a young guy and I was looking for a pretty smile and blonde hair and somebody that would love me. You know, and lessons learned.
Yeah.
You know, these are skills that just aren't taught to young
Yeah, or anyone.
Or anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't get taught these things. And I think, you know, my experience of being in a relationship was similar. You know, I knew what I wanted. I was in this amazing relationship, did not see the red flags, didn't feel comfortable very often about certain behaviors, but was quickly persuaded it was probably me. And there were things I needed to learn. And I just believed we'd work it through and it would be okay in the long run. But yeah, over time, that got worse and worse. So tell me a bit about how things changed and how you started feeling as those red flags became more apparent towards the end of that relationship.
Well, the feelings for me were stress. It was that, like I said, that anxiety, that stress. And it really came up in the finance side of it. I mean, we always struggled with money. I mean, for 24 years, we've always struggled with money. So, you know, I'm the overachiever. I will work and I will figure it out, and I will, whatever I have to do, we'll make sure the payments are made. And I work more hours. You know, we had one account, the money would go in. My wife took care of the bills. She would never let me help. Anytime I did try to help, there was always excuses, or it was painful enough that I didn't want to help. And I mean, I was, at one point in time, you're working 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day. You know, I kind of joked with people. I say, you know, I thought everybody that made $125,000, $130,000 a year was broke. So it's, you know, yes, I had a part in this for certain and sure, but I could never breach that gap and get into the finances enough to help to try to get things straightened out. I was just never allowed. You know, now to me, this is a red flag of this is financial abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. Control around finances is something that we see so much. And I think now a light's been very much shone on it. And, you know, it's interesting for a lot of my audience will be females listening to this. But this happens both ways. And it's really brave of you to come on and talk about your experience and talk about what you went through, because I know you're a kind man. I know you don't want to, you know, throw any shade, or, you know, you're taking full accountability as well for your part, I guess, in the relationship. But as a survivor myself, these things are a bit out of our control. And being highly empathetic, we want to trust and we want to see the best. And it's great if someone wants to help you with the finances. What's not so great is if other things are happening and that's out of your control. So, yeah, I mean, I can see that from your perspective coming on here as a man sharing about abuse is quite rare. Yeah, men don't really talk about this very much, do they? Because
No.
everything you would be talking about.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Why do you think men don't talk about it as much as women?
Because it shows weakness. You know, is a guy. I mean, you're supposed to be tough, and you know, you're not supposed to show emotions. Emotions for a guy are weak, and it just.
Do you still believe that?
No. No, because I know what happens when you bottle them up and you don't deal with them. It eats you up inside out.
And is that what led you to drink, or has you always been a drinker? Tell us about that, Georgia.
No, drank some. I mean, casual drink, yes. Couple of beers to knock the edge off, but not to where I would drink because I wanted it all to go away. At the end, it was that bad. It just, I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to deal with it. And the problem with an alcohol addiction is it's a twofold disease. It's a mental disease and a physical disease. Your body craves the alcohol. Your brain wants whatever you're dealing with to go away. So it's reciprocal. It continues to manifest itself over and over and over. So
Addiction's a really tough subject, I think, because being an addict, because of the circumstance and because you needed that support, is a coping mechanism, right? And as kids, we never sat down at school to choose our coping mechanisms. There's no class where they say, right, John, right, Sarah, sit down on the board today. Here's a variety of different coping mechanisms. Well, we've got bottle of wine, we've got crying, we've got isolating, we've got punching someone. You know, they don't sit down and say, right, what would you like to choose? Is it going to the gym or, you know, talking to somebody? We never consciously choose, I guess. We just learn what kind of works, either from watching others, from watching movies. I think I find it fascinating now when I watch movies. I was a series I was watching the other day, and every time there was a bit of stress, it was a corporate environment. Every time there was a bit of stress, they'd go to the bar and they'd be drinking shots or like alcohol at least. I find it fascinating. It's sort of built into our society, and then, you know, for example, with you start going through that stressful situation and that becomes a crutch.
yeah. Well, and I came from corporate. I spent 20 years working in pharmaceuticals, and you know, towards the end of my career, I was in upper middle management. And on Fridays, we would all go to the fair exchange. It was an accepted practice. It was a company held event, and you know, it's so easy to get into this habit.
Yeah.
You know, and it just is not. It's not a good situation to get into for certain, sure.
No, and it's really tough as well to have that moment where you decide it's time to make a change. So tell us about that. How did you get out of that? Because that's, being an addict is a hard thing to break.
I wanted to. When I made the decision that I wanted to go to rehab, somebody cannot make you do this and be
Right.
successful. I wanted to do it. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I knew that I had to do that. I had to make the change for myself. Nobody else was going to do it. It was not going to get any worse, or not get any better. It's going to get worse. So, you know, it's the therapy helped. You know, seeing the therapist, and that was probably where I was blessed. Was I had the same therapist in rehab that I took with me afterwards. So she had a background on what I was dealing with.
Yeah.
Not the full picture, but she understood. And when I explained to her what was going on, you know, I relapsed, and she says, she said, you need to leave your wife and file for divorce. And I looked at her and said, I can't do that. And I said, I need some time to figure this out. I said, you know, give me it. I said, I need at least 90 days. And she reluctantly said, okay, and went along with it. And I maintained, you know, our weekly sessions, and my prescriptions were running out, and I had to contact my psychiatrist to have my prescriptions renewed. And I explained to them, you know, because you have a meeting with them, you sit down with a session, and I explained to them what I've been going through, and it was a longer period of time span. I was starting to think back, man, I've been in this cycle before.
Tell us about what you were going through then. What were those things? You talk about domestic abuse, toxic relationship, but what specifically were you living with for that period of time?
I would say if it just felt like you were alone. You were always second guessing yourself. I've been isolated from pretty much most of my friends. I didn't do or go anywhere. You know, I work from home now. I did most of the cooking, the cleaning. You know, my wife at that time had gone back to work, so everything was done around the house. It was no enjoyment. You felt empty. Like I said, it was like living with a roommate. It was just, I was the annoying roommate.
Okay. Well, when you talk about the relationship being toxic, what specifically, obviously you felt isolated, but were there like the financial control you touched on, the freedom, like you weren't seeing your friends, but was that your choice, or is that just not an option to go out with other people? Was it not allowed? How did that work?
It was subtle. You just, and that's the hard part about the coercive control in the domestic abuse, is it's so hard to put words to. It's not like you can't go do this, but if you do this, you get the silent treatment. You get the cold shoulder, and that's where this trauma bond comes in, as far as the highs and the lows.
Tell us about that, the trauma bond experience. What does that mean?
So a trauma bond is a chemical that is released in your brain, dopamine and oxytocin, and that's the love hormone, the feel-good hormone, and there's also cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So through coercive control, breadcrumbing, you get acknowledgement. You're loved, you're praised one day, the next day you're ignored. You're I guess being ignored was the worst. I mean, you're always there to, like a puppy dog, you want to please and love your significant other, and it just, you never got that reciprocating. It was never reciprocated back to me. And for me, being an empathetic person, that hurt. So you were continually up, feeling good one day, and then maybe ignored for a couple of days.
Couple of days.
A couple of days.
Wow.
It's so subtle. It's so under the radar. I'd overlooked it. So you throw the antidepressants with the alcohol. You just blindly just move forward.
So the trauma bond means that you are staying with that person, even though the cycle is good one day, bad another. You can't leave because you feel like you're in love with them.
Correct.
And you want to stay with them, even though you know that you're not happy.
And when you start to leave, then you start to feel this withdrawal. It's almost like an addiction, much like alcohol or a drug. It is an addiction. I experienced separation anxiety, brain fog, where you couldn't concentrate, you couldn't think, and it's just a very odd sensation to have. And I think that's why a lot of times people have such a hard time leaving abusive and toxic relationships, is because of these trauma bonds. They start to pull away, they start to leave, and they have this physical feeling. And to make that go away, they go back to the abuser. You go back to it, hoping, and you get that little dopamine hit, you get that little breadcrumb, and you start to breathe again. You start to, okay, it's going to get better. I feel better. I can give you an example. Back in 2000, this is the first time I ever experienced it. I didn't know what it was, but I experienced it. In 2020, my wife went away for about 6 weeks. So I had zero contact for about the first 2 weeks. And, I went into, we have a daughter. Excuse me, we have a daughter. So I'm taking care of her. We're getting ready to go back to school for her freshman year. And, everything is, you're tidying up, you're picking up, your, wife's away. Everything's going to be perfect when she comes back. So over about the first 3 to 4 days, everything was fine. But after that, I started to feel this separation anxiety. And it became so overwhelming. I couldn't think, I couldn't concentrate. Normal everyday tasks. Something as simple as a friend of mine needed to borrow one of our trailers, and I was going to rewire the legs for him. It took me 3 days to do a job that normally would have taken me an hour. I couldn't focus, I couldn't concentrate, and you'd start it and you would just give up. It got to where it was hard to get out of bed. it was almost like a depression as well. And I remember thinking, I'm like, what is going on? It just does not make sense to me. What am I experiencing? And
Did you feel like you missed her being around, or was it the negative symptoms were sort of isolated, you felt depressed, but were you actually missing her being around you?
all of the above.
Okay.
Again, being codependent.
Yeah.
You know, I relied on having somebody there. So that was part of it as well. Where
I know it's tough. It's tough talking about
it is, and I haven't thought about some of this stuff in a long time.
Yeah.
But I remember after 2 weeks, I could talk to her on the phone, and after that after those 2 weeks, and it was weird. It was just even the audible, just hearing that voice, and it was you get the feeling again. I mean, even though she wasn't there, you still got that I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to coming home. You know, you still got some sort of a feel-good hit out of it, a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And, you know, I couldn't articulate what it was then. But
Yeah.
now, after having gone through the divorce and the training, you know, the information is there. The information is so powerful.
That's absolutely true. And I think when we're working with clients, clarity and explaining things like this is really powerful. And that's why you're such an amazing coach, because having your own lived experience means that I know there'll be people listening to this right now going, oh my goodness, I know exactly what John's talking about. I've been there, I've experienced it. And there's no training that can replace that lived experience.
Not at all.
Yeah. And yeah, it's very isolating when you go through these things and you think, is it me? Especially when you're highly empathetic, as you have to be in a toxic relationship anyway. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to have got into it in the first place. We wouldn't, we tolerate a lot more than other people as a survivor myself. I know you kind of bend yourself like a pretzel to stay in it, just to people please and make sure they're happy and take it all on ourselves, that, they're having a bad day. I'll take it on, or, it must be my fault. They said it was my fault. I didn't think it was, but now they've said that, okay, I can kind of see that might be the case, or there's always two perspectives. It's giving that leeway, which empathetic people were great at doing that, but not great at putting our own oxygen mask on. And I think if you haven't lived that experience, it's harder to really help clients unless you've walked in their shoes. And I think that's the beauty and the strength. And I really applaud you for talking about your experience, because it's hard to do anyway. But as you said before, for a man to do that, especially a man that's grown up in a community where to show any sign of weaknesses, any emotions is a weakness, it's powerful what you're talking about, John. It's really, really powerful. It's really moving as well. So thank you for going there and being willing to share, because I think a lot of people will take a lot away from that. And maybe some people listening will think, gosh, there are some decent guys out there too. I think sometimes
We're not all bad, sir.
No, it's good to know. It's good to know. I mean, I work with a lot of male clients actually, and I think there's a lot more men that actually experience domestic abuse than you would think. I think a lot of the time they won't report it, they won't talk about it. It is a gender-based issue, obviously. I mean, that's just the facts. But when men go through it, it's harder, I think, in a lot of times for them to speak out. There's a lot less help. There's a lot less people out there talking about it. And it's great to see you're out there as a beacon of hope and someone that's gone through it. So tell us about that moment where you decided, right, enough's enough. Time to move on.
Well, it really came with clarity of my therapist giving me two definitions. I knew, again, I had my sobriety. I knew that there was something really, really wrong, and I just couldn't put my finger on what it was. I'm that person. I have to have all the T's crossed, I's dotted, and then I can move forward. And my psychiatrist told me that I needed to share with my therapist exactly what I had told her. And when I did...
Hey, it's Sarah here. Just to remind you that we have 3 online support groups where you can find your tribe and get coaching support from my elite team coaches to help you with any kind of breakup, divorce, separation, toxic relationship breakdown, get your questions answered, and get the boost you need. Also, if you'd like to join our coaching community and turn your pain into your superpower and become a breakup and divorce coach with us, then you can also find the details on my website, sarahdavidson.com. We look forward to seeing you soon.
My therapist says she gave me 2 definitions to look up. One was a trauma bond, and the other was what is a covert narcissist. And I read through the definitions, and I identified with many of the things on the list, and that gave me the clarity to say yes, I understand truly what a toxic relationship and unhealthy relationship is. And I made it a full 120 days before I'd made the decision that I had to file for divorce just to save myself. Because I knew that if I continued, I stayed in it, I would either go back to drinking, or it just would not have ended up well for me. I know that my path would have not looked as positive as it does today. So I made the decision to move forward with the divorce, and
Wow.
yeah,
And you got out, which is incredible, because it's hard, as you said, to leave a trauma bond. You said it can take up to 7 times to leave. How many times did you try and get out? Did you manage it on that one first go?
looking back, my cycle was about every 5 years.
Okay.
So I would say I hit at least 5 times in it.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was, after going through the divorce, and you go through paperwork, and you realize, I remember I was feeling about like this then. I felt stressed. I felt like something wasn't right. I felt depressed. And hey, I remember I was drinking now. And it was a cycle, but every time I was able to come out of it. And this time I just couldn't. It was getting worse.
Yeah. It does feel like survival, doesn't it, actually? It feels like you have no choice at that moment.
It's all survival.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful, John. It's really powerful. You came across me in my training. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know there's a funny story.
Yeah, so on Instagram, I going through my divorce, I was never a social media type person, but I'll do Facebook. I need to grow up and figure this stuff out for myself. So I got on Instagram, and I was actually looking for divorce stuff and guys, and I just couldn't find anything that really helped me, So I just didn't see anything out there. I didn't see a lot of divorce coaches. But all of a sudden, here comes this ad for Sarah Davison's divorce coach training. And I'm like, huh. And I remember I saved it, and I kicked it around a couple of times, and it's all come through. I'm like, so I read on it, and I signed up for a discovery call.
They're cool with my team, yeah.
Yeah. And funny enough is I had it scheduled for an hour after my divorce was final. So in the state that I lived, our divorce was done right on Zoom. So my wife's attorney, my attorney, and the judge are all right there on the computer. I did it from the shop that I was living in. And when it was done in about 30 minutes, yeah, it was
Wow.
way more streamlined than it seems to be in the UK.
Yeah, that doesn't work like that.
Yes. My situation was different because my daughter again was 19, and
Right.
it was just the financials that
Okay.
were left over. But anyway, so after the divorce, I waited for about an hour and no call. I waited for another hour, no call, and I checked my email, and your staff did follow up. They said they tried to contact me, but the call wouldn't go through. So I said, okay. And I'm still kind of an emotional wreck from the divorce being final. And I looked over, and my wedding band was sitting on the table. So I grabbed it, threw it in my pocket, and I just kind of needed to go for a drive. So I grabbed my poodle. Yes, I have a poodle.
Oh, like me.
I love them. They're awesome. It's my best buddy. Yeah. But no, I pitched in the truck, and we started to drive down the road, and I looked over, and there's a river that runs up next to the road, and you know what? This chapter of my life is over. I'm done. So I pulled over and opened the door up, grabbed my ring out of my pocket, and I'm not kidding you, in mid-throw, as I'm tossing the ring into the river, the phone rings in my left hand, and I look down, and it's a +44 number, and I'm like, that's interesting. So I answered it, and it was one of your lead coaches, and she was following up on divorce call, and yeah, I explained it. I said, "You're not going to believe this. I said, I just threw my wedding band in the river, and I just got divorced an hour ago," and we laughed about it, and we decided it was divine timing or something. But
Yeah, that's funny.
But yes,
Okay.
that was how that was my introduction to your program.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting story, isn't it? Sometimes I think, I believe in synchronicity and everything happens for a reason, and, that's powerful. So you've been on the training journey, and you've taken your story and your journey that you've been through and combined it with some tools. Now, the training is, I mean, I wrote it, so I think it's amazing, but I do know that people get more out of it from a personal perspective. People think they're coming on to train to become a coach, which we do. We give you those tools. But there's other things that happen along the way, light bulb moments, transformations. What was it for you, John, on that journey?
It was an incredible journey. The first training was in separation and divorce, or breakup and divorce, and just again, I look at red flags where I'm like, where was this 30 years ago? But it highlighted for me, just simple basic relationship skills. That was very powerful in itself, and things that I probably could have used or we could have used for communication skills. It's conflict resolution. It may or may not have helped, but again, there's stuff that I didn't know. And it wasn't something that I could use in my relationship. And I think a lot of these things are very critical that you could pass on to your kids.
Absolutely.
To help them, with relationships in their life.
Yeah.
But it really gave me an idea on the relationship side of it, other than what I had just been in for 24 years. So great training, good eye-opening, where it really benefited me was in the first case study for your program, and my pro bono client. It's supposed to be just a simple breakup and divorce, and the next thing I know, it's a narcissistic situation, and there is domestic abuse, and I was so far over my head. I was I was actually leaning on a couple of the other coaches for help just to get through my case study.
Yeah.
So I could get it turned into you guys. And that was an eye-opener for me, because I was like, I resonated with a lot of what this man was saying. We talked about a lot of similar things, and I knew that if I had been through it, this man had been through it, that there's more of this than just it's a one-off case. So that's why I took the master pack, the toxic relationship and domestic abuse.
Yeah, that training is designed for any of my coaches that want to deep dive and specialize in helping people going through exactly those kind of toxic, narcissistic, domestic abuse situations. And I think it's an interesting training, because it can bring up a lot of stuff, because I know the reason I created it was as everything that I wished I'd had access to when I had fallen out or been catapulted out in my own marriage. And then with the tsunami of the realization of, oh my goodness, it was a toxic relationship. And then the embarrassment and the shame and feeling like an idiot, and then feeling helpless and scared and overwhelmed and terrified about the future, and wondering how I was going to cope as a single mom, because my son was only one. I'd lost my business. I lost everything in that breakup. So these are all the skills that I wish I'd learned. And I went on that journey and learned them. And now when I share them with our coaches like you, I know people are getting those sort of trigger points of going, oh my God, oh wow, I remember this happened to me. Oh wow, like the love bombing, and how we fell in love in the first place. I mean, now looking back at my story, it's like, it's so obvious. And if anyone ever came close to me doing that again, I'd be like deploying my parachute.
Yep.
Deploying my parachute, exit the building with immediate effect. You can't get past me next time, she says. But at that moment, with the hindsight as you're training, I think it does bring back and clarify, doesn't it, a lot of things that make you realise maybe things that you hadn't really faced. Did you find that?
Yeah. Through you mean through my relationship?
Yes, yeah.
Definitely. If I would have if I would have done my master crack case study on myself, it would have been a slam dunk. Because I'm doing this book chapter for emotional alchemy, I'm typing this stuff up and I'm like, oh wow, and it's all right there.
Yeah.
You know, from, like you said, from the love bombing all the way through to all of the red flags,
The gaslighting.
the gaslighting, yes, the coercive control.
Yeah, now you see the financial control for what it was rather
Exactly.
than she's been super helpful and taking that off my plate.
Well, I know it wasn't super helpful when there were boxes of Amazon boxes showing up at the door and we got late bills.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
There were signs. There's always signs, and that's the thing, isn't it? With hindsight, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that training especially is powerful, and I think because you have your lived experience as well, that sort of toolkit behind you, having lived it, and also that healing journey, I think the training forces you through, because you have to. I always say, don't I, that you have to walk your talk to be an outstanding coach. And I'm only interested in training you to be outstanding, blow the doors off. So we've got to face those demons. We've got to be as honest, and you're only lying to yourself. So it's hard, isn't it, sometimes when you're learning tools or seeing how to help clients and you know that you've been through that on the other side.
well, and if living it, if you've lived it, it's a language. You can speak that language. You connect.
Yeah.
For somebody that has never been through that, they cannot. It's like trying to explain to somebody in a different language.
Yeah.
It's like trying to tell a friend that, hey, this is what I've been through, and they're like, well, why didn't you just leave?
Yeah.
You know, why didn't you? I couldn't leave. Well, what do you mean you couldn't leave? I physically and mentally, I did not feel that I could leave. It was stuck. You know, how do you just throw away? You know, I was brought up, you're married for till death do us part. I mean, you just don't leave.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you work it out, you figure it out.
And also because of the trauma bond, that's another level. People
Precisely.
don't understand the power of that unless you've lived it, because it seems quite abstract. It seems like, yeah, but surely if you thought about it, you could just.
It's like being under a spell. Is the best way that I can explain it. It is you're hooked. You are hooked like a drug,
Yeah.
and it's so hard to get away from. It was for me. It was honestly harder to break the trauma bond than it was to quit drinking.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
I wanted to quit drinking. I didn't really want to drink. I drank to escape. You know, I didn't want to leave my wife. I didn't want to file for divorce. I had to for self-preservation, because you take everything else away, the antidepressants, the anti-anxiety medication, the alcohol, and it's raw bare bones. This is what you're dealing with. And as you would say, I had the opportunity to deploy the parachute and leave, or stay with it, and the outcome probably would not have been very good for me.
I think it's amazing your depth of experience, your lived experience, because it's real. You've really been at the coalface and in those dark places yourself. So when you're sitting with clients and they're telling you this, like, you know, even when during the training when you were working with somebody and they were mirroring back, clients have a funny way of doing that, by the way.
Yes, they do.
They show up with all your own stuff. So it's great that you worked through all of that. I think it's really important. For someone listening to you now who might be in a similar situation, be male, female, you know, what would your advice be? Because for you coming out, it was survival. Then it goes into that space of no man's land. How do you navigate that? What would your advice be? Where would you start?
That was tough because you feel alone. You go through a relationship, a situation like this. Then you go into a divorce, and the first thing to leave I found are your friends.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of people, they just don't want to be involved. They don't want to take sides, or they do take sides and it's not yours. You know, rumors get started, things are said, you know, family members kind of seem to just back away. So yeah, out of this, I had my mom and one friend from high school. Everybody else, like I said, it just kind of backed away, and it's isolating. You feel alone.
Yeah.
You know, and I have my therapist.
Okay. You're a therapist, which is great. And I think, you don't need an army of people, but you need some. So, yeah, it's great that you support network. So is that, you would advise having a support network of people around you? If someone's looking now going, right, I'm in that stage, and I'm feeling all these emotions, so I'm feeling alone, I'm feeling scared. A lot of my friends have left. I know I felt like that because narcissists, toxic personalities are very good at recreating the narrative to be something completely different than actually what happened, because it serves them in that purpose, and they don't look like the hero the other way. So this is the way it's presented. And it's pretty convincing because they're great at convincing people that black is white. And you're there going, hang on, but this isn't real, and you're still being gaslit, you're still being confused.
Yes.
But at least the people that believe that they're away, hopefully, from you, you start to build your support team.
Yep.
What else is important in that moment?
Well, first I want to thank you for saying what I didn't want to say. So yes, smear campaign was absolutely horrific. I felt devastated.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I lost a lot of friends, a lot of people, and afterwards, you can never rebuild who you are. I mean, people have a perceived, they perceive you one way, and then all of a sudden, they're told something else, and they don't know what to believe. So they just back away.
Yeah. To be honest, in some ways, they are doing you a favor, because you cannot have joint friends. It doesn't work.
No.
Like, you just can't. Even if it's, your friend from childhood and they want to, I've been there. You cannot have joint friends. You have to let them go, at least for a period of time, whilst you get your strength back, get back up on your feet. And then you can make a decision without the emotion, do I want this person in my life? Because anything that your ex can find out, if they are toxic, they will weaponize that against you. So you're better off just cutting that. And as hard as it is, and I know how hard it is because it increases the loneliness, but actually it's safer, I would say.
And that's pretty much that's the route that I end up taking. Is like I said, I have one friend that would check on me every couple of weeks. He'd call, see how I was doing. But other than that, I just worked on myself. I'd worked on my business, and started your trading. And I mean, you can see that, because that's all I did.
Yeah, you threw yourself in there, and you were like full on fast track through it. Yeah, it was amazing to see.
Yeah.
But I think because you had that drive and that purpose, and it was the same for me. Like, my motto, "Screw you, watch this." It was born in okay, if there is no current path, because there wasn't. Mine was 16 years ago, of how to heal. I'm going to find it, create it, build the tools, and get out there. And that was my purpose. And to be honest, I haven't actually stopped since then. So, but it does give you a reason for being. It gives you a lifeline, and it gets you through. And I'm so honoured that my training gave you that. And just to watch the journey you've come on, and your confidence and your ability and your understanding is phenomenal. And I'm super excited to cheer you on all the way with your clients, because I know your experience it's rare for someone who's been through what you've been through, for a man to stand up and work with clients. I see that you're working with men and women.
Yes.
Talk to me a bit about that, because some people might think, you might only work with men. And obviously I know there's probably a lot of men listening that would go, yeah, I definitely want John to be my coach. But why, and I have worked with male coaches over the time on domestic abuse, but why would you think it's good for women to work with a male coach?
Well, the training is not gender specific, and really, at the end of the day, neither is domestic abuse.
No.
It's I'm living proof, and sometimes people, whether they're male or female, they feel more comfortable with the opposite sex. It's just whom they feel comfortable with to open up with, and that's the important part. It's building that connection to feel comfortable to share this, because it's vulnerable stuff. I mean, the stuff that I've been through, to open up to just somebody that doesn't get it, it just doesn't work. It's not as effective.
Yeah.
I also think that, especially for a female client, just to be around a male figure that is, not abusive, not toxic, and trained and has been through this on their own, gives them a different perspective.
Yeah.
Not all guys are bad, I promise.
Absolutely. And I had a male therapist I saw for a while who was an expert in domestic abuse. And I found just being around him really reassuring, actually, as a woman. It was nice. I had a female therapist I worked with, and she's phenomenal, still good mates today, actually. But the male therapist gave something slightly different. And I think it's really important. You've got to, have a team around you, and you might need different things at different times. I think it's important to look at that. I know boundaries are something that you worked on when you were coming out, and explain a bit about that, because boundaries, people think, well, what does it mean? How would I start again? Because if you've been in a toxic relationship, boundaries and what's acceptable behavior to you pretty much non-existent as you sort of fall out of that relationship, aren't they?
Well, being an empathetic person and a people pleaser, was me from the get-go. I had zero boundaries, which set me up to fail, period. So yes, boundaries are extremely important. And it just reassuring your boundaries is important, because it lets people know what you will tolerate and what you won't. And that keeps you safe, in whether it's in a relationship, in a interpersonal relationship, or even friends, family, and work environment.
Absolutely, yeah. Because this happens everywhere, right? Toxic relationships.
Definitely. And if you pull down your boundaries, somebody's going to take advantage. They're going to push that. So it's your responsibility to hold that in place. It's like having a wall of blocks, and you let somebody cross that boundary, and you take one block out and set it down. And when it comes time to put that back in, it just never fits the same. So that block is missing. And each time you allow somebody to cross that threshold of that boundary, it just wears it away. It erodes it down until there's nothing left.
Yeah. I think some people see boundaries as like a wall, and it is kind of a protective wall around you, but it enables you also to have doors where you select people that you open the door to walk through. And so I think it works both ways, to protect you, to protect yourself, but also just have a bit more choice. And learning to say no is a great boundary as well.
No is a good thing.
No is a whole sentence.
Yes, it is.
I love it. I love that. Now, I know that people listening will want to reach out to you, John. How can they find you? Where would people find you if they want to work with you?
I'm on Instagram, John Hardy Divorce Coach. My website is www.johnhardydivorcecoach.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and my email is j.whardy@j.whardydivorce@gmail.com.
Perfect. And I know you've got some gifts, haven't you? Some downloadable guides that you've created.
Yes, definitely. On my website, there's 2 links. They're free downloadable pages. One is on what is a trauma bond.
Oh, that sounds good.
And what is domestic abuse.
Oh, I love the one that's...
So 2 things that, again, give people clarity on what they're dealing with.
So you can go to your website, John Hardy with a Y, divorcecoach.com, and download what is a trauma bond and also what is domestic abuse. And I think that would be a great guide to have, to just get a bit more clarity, because clarity gives you power. Once you start to understand what you're going through, then it's like when you work with your therapist, right? She gave you some clarity and pointed you in the right direction. So it's interesting that they're the two guys that you've written, because I think that's where you started, was I said, check out trauma bonds. And this could be domestic abuse. And
Those are the 2 things that set me free.
wow, super powerful. Thank you, John. Well, the last question I have for you, which is the question I ask all my guests on my podcast. Obviously, it's called Heartbreak to Happiness. What is happiness for you, John?
Happiness for me, I would say contentment. Just being content and inner peace. It is rooted in faith, gratitude, and a good perspective, an honest perspective of myself and the world around me.
I love that. And maybe your dog as well.
And I love my dog.
And a poodle called D, is that right?
Poodle D, yes. My emotional support divorce doodle.
I do think that any dogs with a bit of poodle in them are very good therapy dogs.
She's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully we can see some photos of D on your website.
I believe there is.
Brilliant. Okay, we'll check it out. Thank you, John, for coming on today, and thanks for being such a fabulous guest.
Sarah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's it for today's episode of Heartbreak to Happiness. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to win a free ticket to Sarah's virtual Heartbreak to Happiness retreat. This is a transformative combination of live webinars with Sarah herself, coupled with her empowering online video program designed to help you cope better with your breakup and start feeling happy again. Thank you, and join us again on the next episode for another dose of Heartbreak to Happiness.